Welcome back, brothers and sisters of Christ. My name is Brianna and I'm back with another video. And for today's video is the Lord will provide. Jehovah Jireh, baby. So when I be telling y'all stuff on videos that God has spoke to me, gave me, I don't just tell y'all this stuff to be saying it. Like, I'm either living it, trying to implement it myself, or, done it or been through it most of the times. So not too long ago, I did a video about complaining, and one of the examples that I had used was like, instead of complaining about certain things that you have to pay, be grateful that you have the funds and finances to pay it, instead of being like, oh, I'm tired of this bill, $300, I don't want to pay this, but you got the money to pay it. So just be grateful that you have the money to pay it instead of complaining about having to pay it. You know what I'm saying? So like 2 months ago, my fiance's job had took like a financial turn unexpectedly. And honestly, I couldn't even find it in my heart to even worry or stress about it. So the first thing I did is what I do best. I got on my knees and I prayed about it. And I remember asking the Lord, I was like, Lord, if this is not a season that we're supposed to be in, then I ask that you give his job a change of heart and correct the issue. But if it is a season that we're supposed to be in, Lord, I'm asking that you make a way and allow us to adjust and manage our finances the best way that we can in order to get through this season. And I just left it in God's hands from there on. Because I got to a point in my life, like when you're in a season that God has placed you in, there's nothing you can do to get out of it. You're in that season. So you might as well weather the storm, baby. And you might as well be the best player you can be in that season. So I always ask God now to help me get through these seasons and help me do what I need to do to get through these seasons instead of complaining about the season that I'm in. So yeah, like I said, I left it in God's hands after that. So when I pray about stuff, I like to pray that particular way. Like I said, I like to be detailed because when the outcome arrives, I know what God is telling me. So if they corrected the pay, I knew like, okay, it was just a misunderstanding. This is not a season we're supposed to be in. But if they didn't correct it, it lets me know this is a season that we're supposed to be in. Boom. Like, I'm prepared. I'm ready. I know exactly what God is telling me. So I pray like that. It's to be real detailed. So when he answers back, whatever the outcome is, it lets me know. So anywho, rent began approaching during this time. And I was up getting ready for work. And out of nowhere, it's like a light bulb went off. And I realized that I had filed my taxes. I honestly had forgot all about it. I had forgot that I filed my taxes. And usually, people be ready like, oh, I found my taxes coming. And the Lord ended up telling me to pay rent for the next 2 months with the taxes. So we wouldn't have to worry about coming out of pocket, of our checks. Because during this time of the financial inconvenience that happened unexpectedly. So he's like, pay rent with the taxes for the next 2 months. Because we're still getting paid. We still got checks coming in. So it's like, okay, boom. So we don't have to use our personal money to pay rent, which is obviously the biggest bill that we have. So we using that to pay the rent, and we still have our money to do whatever it is we need to do, during this time that we're going through this season. So when he told me that, I thought to myself, I'm like, this is obviously a season that we're supposed to be in. Because I thought about my prayer, like, Lord, if this is a season that we're supposed to be in, allow us to be able to, manage our finances and get through this season. So I'm like, okay, boom. That's why I told y'all, like, that's why I pray that way. Because it lets me know. So I'm like, this is a season that we're supposed to be in. Because he's allowing us to be able to manage. Okay? So it's so funny because like about 2 years ago, I would have been upset. I would have been like, oh my God, I don't want to use my taxes for this because, a lot of times, most of the time when we get our taxes, we use it to like spoil ourselves. We use it to have fun. We're not trying to pay no bills because we've been paying bills with all our other checks, throughout the year. So I would have been like, I want to enjoy my money, blah, 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 which is now I look at it as an ungrateful standpoint. Because it's like, okay, you have the finances to do what you need to do, but you're complaining that you have to use the finances for that reason. But let you not have the finances, you would have been complaining about not having the finances. So just be grateful that you have the finances. You know what I'm saying? And this is actually interesting because about 3 years ago, there was a time I had to use, it wasn't my taxes, but I had got like a 401k from a previous job. And it was when we first moved out of state, I had to use that money to pay rent. And during that time, I was complaining like, I want to enjoy my money. I do not want to use this on paying no rent, no bills. I was so upset about it. But now that I've grown spiritually, you know, I wasn't even upset that we had to use our taxes for that reason, because I was just grateful that we had the taxes to use to begin with. You know, I was just thankful that the Lord had made a way, because if it wasn't for the taxes, then what? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure the Lord would have still made a way, but still, you know what I'm saying? And it's just crazy how that happened. You know, when the taxes was about to arrive, the Lord had already made, the plan was already written. You know what I'm saying? He already knew we were going to be good. I wasn't even thinking about the taxes, but the Lord already knew, like, okay, boom, they got the taxes on the way, the job taking a financial turn, boom, they're going to use the taxes for this. And when you hear people say, like, when they pray or when they're talking, you hear people say, like, it's already done. The Lord has already taken care of it when it comes to something you prayed about, because it's literally already done. And that was an example of that. You know, the taxes had already been filed and on its way before this financial turn happened. So by the time, before I even got on my knees to pray about it, the plan was already written. God said, I already got that plan. We already got that answered. You know, I'm just now, you know, I just found out after I prayed, he ended up revealing it to me. But he had already had it put together, baby. Oh, I love the Lord. He's so intentional. The prayer was already answered. Long story short. So the Lord used that money to provide for us. And about a month after that took place, my fiance started to see the fruit of his labor at that job. And they didn't correct the thing that initially happened, that they changed. But the very thing that they changed ended up helping him in the long run to see the fruit of his labor. So it was really a blessing in disguise. Look at the Lord. Look at the Lord. It's just so crazy. It's just so amazing. But sometimes we complain about the very thing that God has prepared for us. We complain about the very thing that God has provided for us. Like, oh, I don't want to use my money for this and that and blah, blah, blah. But that was the very way that God has made for you. And you ought to be thanking him that a way was made. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the way that the Lord has made, and you complain and say, I don't want to use my money for that. So you being ungrateful of the way that the Lord has made for you. And that's what I talked about in the video. And then I end up having like a personal experience. I'm like, okay, just align with the video. But baby, we don't call him Jehovah Jireh for no reason. Which means the Lord will provide. And he does. You know, the Lord lives up to that name, and he lives up to every name that we call him. He is a provider, baby. Oh, I just love him so much. He is a man of his word. Humans are not. He is always a man of his word, and I just love that for us, because it lets you know anything that the Lord has promised to you, or anything that the Lord has told you, or anything we read in the word, it is true. It will come to pass. So God is so good, but I just wanted to share that with y'all, a little short testimony. But if this word is not for you, it's for somebody else. Remember, I'm telling y'all this because I love y'all. God bless.